1874
Preview Show.
Hello, welcome to an 1874 match preview. Villa's European adventure begins tomorrow, and I'm delighted to be joined by the Athletic's Jacob Tanswell, who's covering Aston Villa this season ahead of my old chum, Greg Evans. I mean, to be honest, Jacob, he needed a refresh, Villa. Some guy, Greg Evans, everyone was getting fed up of him, and you've come in, and it's a different standard. It's a different quality of reporting now, Jacob, so everyone thanks you. How are you finding doing Villa so far?
You're really, really good. I know you're expecting me to say that, but I've absolutely loved the first 2-3 weeks of it. It's just been fantastic. Even the result at St James's, I've loved everything about it. I've loved getting to know the club, learning about the people in the club, and just coming out of ideas really to write about. And there's no shortage of ideas at the moment. It's a very exciting time.
Yeah, you like a tactical breakdown, don't you? I've noticed. I'm still a subscriber on The Athletic. I still read everything on there, especially the Villa stuff. You like a bit of tactical insight, Jacob?
I do. I think I need to make sure there's a balance between just completely going overboard.
It's my bread and butter, to be honest. It's stuff I like. So you're doing well for me.
Yeah, I think that's one of my better strengths. So I thought, you know what, when I come into Villa, I'll stick to it initially.
Have you had like a favourite moment or a favourite story you've had to do so far? I know it's early days.
I think it's probably Pau Torres' interview, because what was funny about that is that we were waiting for him to come into the AstroTurf at Bodymore, and he came in, but the translator was running late. So, his English is good, but I was a bit unsure whether we could have a conversation. So me and Pau Torres, this 30 million Spanish international, were just sat in a corner, just minding our business, just me and him for about 15 minutes, just talking, not in an interview, just talking, waiting for the translator to come. So yeah, that was pretty cool. And then obviously got the interview as well. So yeah, that's probably my favourite time.
I mean, his English is probably going to be easy to understand than mine right now. Yeah, obviously my accent's pretty thick, because you're living in, but you're obviously living in Birmingham, living in Sutton Coldfield, where I'm from, as well now. How are you finding that?
Really good. Obviously, Birmingham's got a really bad reputation from these posh Southerners who just say, "Oh no," they're a little bit tense, apprehensive of me coming. But I did my due diligence in terms of the best places to go and where to check out, and I had a look all around Birmingham for a few months. I decided on Sutton Coldfield because it was closer to Bodymore, mate. That's the pure reason. But I've basically seen all of Birmingham. I've just been in my car every evening after work, just checking out a few other places. So I've really enjoyed it, and I went back to Southampton last week, and I was only there for a couple of days, but I already wanted to get back to Birmingham. So really? I think that's got a pretty good sign.
That's good, and we'll go out for some beers soon as well. We'll make sure we get that in the diary. Of course, you're not in Birmingham right now. You're in Edinburgh for Villa's first European game in, I think, 13 years. Are you getting like a sense of the atmosphere? Probably not in that hotel room, but in general, have you seen any Villa fans about? Is the atmosphere starting to build?
Not yet. It's just mainly been the Fringe Festival. It's been absolutely rammed. I've been around Edinburgh, towards the castle, just having a walk around the city centre, and it's just just absolutely hectic. I've not seen any Villa fans yet, disappointingly, but I'm going to go around, get this to the stadium early tomorrow, and probably go around the city centre too, and hopefully I'll see a few Villa fans and bump into a few and have a chat, and hopefully a drink as well.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully this is going to be a long European journey for you. I'm hoping you're going to get to go to a lot of places on this European tour that Villa fans are hoping to have. But I guess it's important to not run before we can walk. Villa have got to get through these qualifiers with Hibernian first, and without being disrespectful, Villa should get through. But the away leg first, the Scotland v England vibe, it probably will be quite a hostile atmosphere, and I don't think it's maybe going to be as easy as some people would think. Would you go along with that?
I think so. I think this will really test the application and probably the mindset of the players as well, because if they think they're just going to rock up and they can do their fancy passes, they can build up from the back without any pressure, I think they're going to be mistaken, because this type of game threatens to just chuck out all the tactical structure and all the quality, really. If you get dragged into a dogfight, if the crowd suck you in and they intimidate you, then the quality goes out the window and it becomes one of those exactly just like a dogfight. So Villa need to start well. They need to have that strong mindset. I spoke to John McGinn yesterday, who basically said in no uncertain terms that he's going to be telling some of the foreign lads who have not experienced Scotland before, Scottish atmospheres, that they need to be ready for an onslaught early, and they need to make sure their quality counts straight away. And I think if they can do it in the first 10, 15 minutes, settle the crowd down, hopefully impose themselves in the game, and I think overall in the tie they should be quite comfortable.
I guess the McGinn angle is probably the biggest story of this game. Him returning to the club that Villa bought him for an absolute snip of 2.5 million for 5-6 years ago. I guess that is the main narrative with the game. And I don't know how much you'll have seen of John McGinn live before you obviously started covering Villa. But he's such a unique footballer. Had a difficult time at Villa this time last year, but now when you're covering us, he really is. He's arguably the most important player, probably except for the goalkeeper.
I looked at John McGinn last year. I've watched a few games from last year, and I just thought when he plays well, Villa play well. Like he's almost just sets the tempo. He gets around the pitch. He gets the atmosphere, gets the team going, and you saw that against Everton as well. Like I think he did touch the ball that many times in the first half, but when he did, he was so sharp. He was whipping it into Moussa Diaby's feet, and I thought he just really set the tone. He got that first goal, and then from then on in, I thought Villa were pretty comfortable. So Easter beating heart, and his attitude, his application, fans love him, and obviously Emery loves him as well. I think he's a phenomenal footballer, and it's only when you really drill into him, you look at him like Villa fans have for the last 5 years, that you start to appreciate him. Because I've always thought he was a good footballer. I've always thought he is, good for Aston Villa. But I think, for me, he can go on and he can, can well hold his own in the elite, and hopefully that is with Villa.
Yeah, I'd expect him to start. I don't think Villa will mess around with the team too much for this one. I think maybe later on, if they do qualify in the group games, you might see some heavy rotation. Yeah. I think there may be a couple of changes here and there. I'd expect Tielemans and Diego Carlos perhaps to start. I'm hoping they do not rotate the goalkeeper and take Emi Martinez out. Please don't do that, Unai Emery. But have you got any vibe around that? Do you know anything that's happening with the team selection? Do you expect Villa to go full tilt?
I think so. Like you say, I would expect Yuri Tielemans and Diego Carlos to come in. I think there could be certain argument to say that to move Konsa to right back and take out Cash purely for height to negate the Hibernian's direct strengths. I only expect a handful of changes at most. Zaniolo, could he come in? Probably coming off the bench. So yeah, I'd imagine that Emery wants to keep it quite strong, and then when you can go into the group stages where you've got a little bit more room for error, then you can start to make those changes.
Yeah, Sai AVFC in the chat is saying have to watch the front for three, all very quick. Sai AVFC fell asleep in our podcast actually at the weekend that we did, so he's awake this time, which is brilliant news. But I've got to be honest, he knows more about Hibernian than I do. Have you got any knowledge on Hibs? I know I should know something. I've looked through their squad today, looked at their results. They've lost their first two league games, but I'm not a massive follower of Scottish football, so I personally don't really know what to expect.
John McGinn said the other day that he thinks that Hibernian will be on the front foot and they'll press high. He said they're always better when they try and turn the ball up over high. They were aggressive. They've played 4-2-3-1 in a few of the games this season. But I wouldn't be surprised if they go back to their 5-3-2. They've trialled it out once this season, and I think just to stop Villa and just basically crowd Villa in a low block and crowd their number 10s. I wouldn't be surprised if they did that and they tried to hit Villa on the break at times. But they've got a lot of players that are pretty well known to the EFL, really. We were speaking before this. Adam Lafondra's there, the EFL warhorse.
How is he still playing?
How old is he?
I'm going to look at it now because we spoke about.
I bet he's not actually that old. I just think
if he's younger than me, I'm going to be really upset. I'm going to be really upset if he is younger than me. That surely not. What are we going to guess? I'm going to guess 39, and that would be older than me.
I'm going 37.
Oh God, that could be the same. Adam Lafondra. Oh God, according to this, he's 36. So he's younger than me. I don't know how old you are, Jacob.
I'm 22. So
oh God, I mean, there was always the chance he was going to be older than you. Someone guessed 54. That wasn't right. 32. King 81 guessed as well. So yeah, we've got a couple of ex-Villa Academy players who did make fleeting appearances in the cups in the first team. In Harry McCurdy again, and someone who's been in the AFL, and Jake Doyle Hayes. And I've got to be honest, until today, I'd completely forgotten that Lee Johnson was the manager as well. Someone who obviously, when Villa were in the Championship for 3 seasons, Villa came across quite a lot. He annoyed the Villa fans, actually. He said a couple of stupid things after a game. Once saying, well, we'll see who gets promoted at the end of the season. It was Villa. Villa obviously made it back to the Premier League before Bristol City did. Bristol City haven't made it. So there's some interesting characters there. It does have the feel a little bit of like an FA Cup / Carabao Cup banana skin, a little bit, just because of some of the personnel that they have.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm kind of quite glad it's a 5:45 kickoff because it's not just quite under the lights yet, and that just could be a little difference in ramping up the atmosphere. I think what Hibernian are, I think they're going to be niggly. I think they're just going to get into Villa. They're going to try and disrupt them, especially their ball players. So, make these cheap fouls on Tillemans or whoever's in midfield. And I just think they're going to do what they can for as long as they can in getting the crowd up. It's going to be one of those games, especially for Villa, who want the other opposition strikers to come onto them, to press, but so they can play through the lines. I think it's going to be a real test of their bravery and courage. Because I remember I asked Emery a couple of weeks back, what's the difference between the home and away form? Because it's pretty stark at the moment. And he just said, naturally away from home, the team lose their composure, and that's so important in how they build up the play because they want to play through the lines. And at Villa Park, they can do that. Obviously, it's sort of St James's, they can get a little bit ruffled and they lose their quality. So I think although it's an inferior opposition this time around, it's going to be a good test and probably good practice, testing out these schemes and especially playing out from the back too.
Yeah, funny enough, when Emery first came in, it was the home form that
Yeah.
was a bit off, and away Villa started like an absolute house on fire under Emery. Just how excited are you about covering Villa and in particular Unai Emery through a European season? Hopefully, because this guy is the real deal in Europe, isn't he? Particularly Europa League, Europa Conference League.
Yeah, incredibly excited. I think when I got offered the role of Aston Villa, the first thing that came to mind was Unai Emery in Europe. This could go deep. It
Yeah,
could be really fun. This could be exciting. Go to so many places, and Villa are undoubtedly on the upward trajectory, and Europe just it's a cherry on the icing really. And it's just I looked at it and I saw the growth as well, because Emery's not going to just settle for this. He's not going to settle for Conference League qualifying. He wants Europe. His dream is, he said it 4 or 5 times already this season, his dream is Champions League. So for me, that's just really exciting to cover, and hopefully the optimism just will continue, and it'll make my job and it'll make my work life so much more enjoyable and much easier too.
Sai AVFC in the chat appears to be a Hibs expert, unless he's literally on a Hibs forum now, just copying and pasting stuff and putting it into the chat. Venti and especially Martin Boyle will need keeping quiet. They have their own Leon in Yuan. Does really good things, but also really frustrating on the wing. Do we know anything actually about injuries? Obviously, Bailey went off. Hoping that wasn't anything too serious because he had a good game on Sunday against Everton. Has he said anything about injuries, Unai Emery?
Yeah, I don't think Leon Bailey's too serious, and I think that's the same with Philip Coutinho as well. Coutinho will be out for 2 to 3 weeks with the hamstring injury. So those two you probably have to look at as well. John Durant's one that could be playing this time around, but obviously you've probably still got to monitor his minutes and get him back to full fitness. I think Emery said that he'll get back to full fitness after 2, 3 or 4 weeks training with the first team, and it's not quite been that yet. So there's a few Villa players that just need to manage their minutes, manage their fitness. But one good thing about the Everton game was that he could take off some of the key players with half an hour to go. So that shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, so that instead of like maybe not using them for this game, they've had a bit of a rest in the Premier League game. I do think Tillemans will play, but I wonder if it will be for Luiz or if it will be for Kamara. I'm unsure which one he'd end up taking out.
I wouldn't be surprised if they both play and then play Tillemans in that number 10 role like he did second half against.
How do you think?
Yeah, against Newcastle. Just because I think Tillemans can probably drop a little bit deeper to get the ball from deep and maybe help out that way in the midfield, and then you can just allow McGinn and Diaby to operate from the other side on that right side and wreak havoc. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happens, and then Emery's always got the license if things are going well to take one of those off and then rotate again. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, because I think if you have those three in there, if they can just keep the ball, it will certainly quiet down the atmosphere.
Yeah, Zaniolo, I think, will play from the bench. I'd be shocked if he came straight into the side. I mean, I said having you on at some point, someone would definitely ask you about transfers in the chat. Absolutely nobody's asked. No,
Don't mention it, Dan.
Not one person. But I'm gonna ask you about it instead. Is there any update over the last few days? I did a pod with Greg yesterday, so we did go through transfers a bit. But has there been anything in the last 24 hours? There's still heavy rumours about Luca Dean. So
yeah,
will he even play tomorrow? I'd expect he probably will, but I guess there would be a doubt of whether he would be able to play or not tomorrow.
Yeah, he's a curious case, isn't he? Because you look at all the other players that Villa could leave Villa, they're in and out of the team, or they're not getting many minutes. Where Digne's starting every game because Moreno's injured, but he's been pretty influential. The Everton game, he was very solid, and yet you always just have this feeling that Emery doesn't. It's not Emery's type of player, really. I think he probably wants something a bit more expansive. And Digne's best attributes are, he's a really good crosser of the ball, but he's a bit of a traditional cross of the ball in terms of getting it into the back post. At Everton, he had good success with Calvert-Lewin, where Ollie Watkins and Diaby prefer cutbacks, and it probably doesn't suit as much. And that's where, obviously the interest in Acuna comes from. And, if that can get done, then you probably see, maybe Digne leaving as well. So I think it will depend on departures as well, because it's just all, I'm sure Greg's, mentioned a lot of times, it's just about balancing the books as well in terms of FFP and making sure that they're on the right side. I think they're very conscientious of that.
Yeah, I got told last week anyway that Acuna was relatively close, but I think the goalpost might have moved a little bit since I think he's picked up an injury as well. So they're probably looking at that at the moment. But I said to Greg yesterday that I expect Luca Dean to go, because when Moreno's fit, he's not the number one left back. Moreno was a really transformative player last season, and you can't have someone on Luca Dean's wages that isn't first choice. It just doesn't make any sense. So Villa can free that up and get a left back who maybe doesn't mind being backup, but offers similar things to Moreno. Like you say, you're completely right with what you say. Luca Dean is a stand and deliver left back. When Moreno plays, he gets to the byline. It's a cut back rather than a crosser. You've hit the nail on the head with what you say there. So I think it will still be an interesting week or so left in the transfer window. I still think you'll see some outgoings. I still think you may see one or two come in for Villa as well. But Greg said equally he wouldn't be surprised if absolutely nothing happened. I said this yesterday. When me and Greg spoke about this yesterday, and that I felt at the start of the season the squad was really well set, and I really liked the balance of it in the numbers. And then you get a couple of injuries and whatnot, and players are now leaving as well. And I suddenly think we're a little bit on the short side for squad, especially with now the European football hopefully continuing through the season.
You have the knock-on effect. I think Brandy was the one that started it, really, because he got injured, and you think, what's the repercussions for Coutinho? Because he'd probably say, you get him off wage bill, highest earner in the squad. Brandy is starting ahead of him anyway, but because he's injured, you think, does Coutinho now have more, more importance, or does that press on the need to get rid of him so they can bring a player that's on less wage but would probably step in to fill Buendia's void? So it's all of a sudden, through these two injuries, you got all these balancing acts, and Villa have got to decide on what position to address and how they shape their squad. And it went from a pretty settled, like you said, stable squad, to all of a sudden you're thinking, okay, maybe you need to address that area, and then you need to make sure someone goes from that area. It's a difficult task for Emery and Monchi.
Yeah, so you're Hibs now. Well, sorry, no, you're not Hibs. That's not a real place. You're in Edinburgh now, and straight back to Birmingham, or you might as well go straight to Burnley, I guess.
Yeah, so I come back Thursday morning. Come back to Birmingham Thursday morning. Emery's press conference is probably going to be Friday morning, and then work Friday. Hopefully, get a little bit of a day off on Saturday before travelling up for the game. It's going to be a lot of travel, but yeah, you'd rather this than be in the Championship or anything else.
Yeah, plus the team you covered last season got relegated. I was thinking the first game when we lost 5-1. I was like, not sure about this Tanswell guy. Southampton went down, and then we're getting pumped 5-1 on the first day of the season. I'm not sure about this.
Honestly, this is the first time since November that the team I've covered are not bottom of the league. It's just so refreshing, and it's the first win I've seen since March as well.
Honestly, I wasn't sure about that when we lost the first day. I was like, this Tanswell guy better fix up quickly. But it's been a pleasure to have you on the show tonight. Thanks ever so much for coming on and having a chat with me. It's great for the Villa fans to see who you are as well, because obviously a lot of them will have been reading your stuff. So hopefully you enjoy your hotel room for the rest of the evening. It looks absolute top notch. No bed spared, and
no windows either.
No windows, which is perfect. Exactly what you want when you're away. And I hope you have a good time and enjoy the game tomorrow, mate.
Appreciate that, mate. Thanks for having me on.
No, any time. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel with your post notifications on if you are enjoying all the content at the moment, and give the video a like and a comment as well, and see what your thoughts are, and we'll try and get back to as many of you as we can as well. Once again, thanks to Jacob, thanks to Lee for producing. I'm not going to do a post-match show tomorrow because Rollo has asked me to go on Claret and Blue and do it with him, so I'm going to go and do that. So if you want to hear my thoughts after the game, don't go to this channel, go to the Claret and Blue podcast, and then Dave Reid and myself will do a match preview at some point before Burnley as well, so watch out for that. Thanks ever so much for watching. Up the Villa.